Donald Trump is still en route to Davos. His overnight trip was delayed for more than 2.5 hours. Add that to the jet lag. When he gets there, his row with Europe over Greenland will dominate. One former Republican strategist, now a Trump critic, Rick Wilson, told us earlier that Greenland is just a front.
It's not that he wants to take control of Greenland. It's that he wants to destroy NATO. He believes in this vision of a world where Xi gets Asia, Putin gets Europe, and he gets the rest of the world. And it is a bizarre, sick, wrong belief, but he understands he can't leave NATO because of the United States law and this deep entanglement, but he could break it.
Well, at his news conference last night, the president was asked whether he was prepared to risk the future of NATO to take over the Danish territory.
I think something's going to happen that's going to be very good for everybody. Nobody's done more for NATO than I have, as I said before, in every way. Getting them to go up to 5% of GDP was something that nobody thought was possible, and pay. At 2% they weren't paying. At 5% they are paying. And they're buying a lot of things from us, and they're giving them, I guess, to Ukraine. That's up to them, but they're giving them to whoever they're giving them to, but they're buying a lot. I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy. But we need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security. It's very important. How about it?
That was Donald Trump there talking last night about Greenland. So if, as he says, the Europeans are buying a lot of things, who benefits? Well, companies like defence technology contractor Palantir. Labour has just handed the biggest ever Ministry of Defence contract to the company, worth £240 million. The US software giant provides AI models to militaries around the world and has also been a key partner for ICE. That's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials in America. Well, Louis Mosley is Executive Vice President for UK and Europe at Palantir and joins us now. Good morning.
Morning, Kate.
Let's start with the biggest question here, really. Is the UK currently meeting the scale of the challenge when it comes to defence?
Well, I think we are seeing the world become an increasingly dangerous place. We need to rediscover hard power. That does mean that we are going to need to invest, I think, more in defence. But of course, that is a decision for our politicians because, as we know, the country is very fiscally constrained. That means we can't borrow much, more than we already are. And therefore, we need to make trade-offs. But that is something that politicians, not business people like me, need to decide.
Where are the biggest gaps as you see them? I mean, you know this space well. You know what other countries are investing in and where they're putting their money. When it comes to the UK's defence capability, where are the gaps that we have?
Well, over the last 40 years, we have, as many people have said, enjoyed a peace dividend. We have stopped spending what we spent during the Cold War on defence. And we have spent more on other things like healthcare and education, and we've benefited enormously from that. But as we're seeing the world becomes more dangerous, we need to be in a position where the UK and other sovereign countries in Europe can pursue their interests. And that means ultimately those need to be backed by hard power, by conventional military capability.
So in terms of that question, though, where the gaps are for us, because people often talk about the size of our military, so literal soldiers. We talk about poor defence spending on things like our armoured vehicles, which, we've had significant problems with, our ships, for example, our air capability. People have often raised questions about the way defence is procured in this country. But what is the biggest gap, do you think?
Well, again, I think that's a question for our military leadership. They need to assess what they see as the biggest threats and then ensure that the country has the capabilities to defend against those. But one I would perhaps highlight that I think born of what we are seeing in Ukraine is the importance of air defences. We are seeing Ukraine get hit night after night by thousands of missiles and drones from Russia. And the front line in Ukraine has become a stalemate. But the risk now to Ukraine, their ability to stay in this fight, is their ability to withstand that kind of an air assault, to ensure that they can keep their energy infrastructure going so people still have heating in their homes and some semblance of normal life can continue. And I think that's a lesson that all countries need to draw, and it's an area that we all need to begin investing in.
And that's an area that maybe the UK has not yet done enough in. I mean, is that part of the contract you've been awarded in terms of what you will do in this country, £240 million contract? Is that part of it?
Yes, it could be, absolutely. And I think the UK military are watching very closely what's happening in Ukraine, and they are drawing the correct lessons.
And is the pace of change in Ukraine, is that a big part of this picture? I mean, some people say that other countries are they're sending people to Ukraine to work out on the ground how this technology is changing day by day, hour by hour. Is that advancing things much more quickly?
It is. I mean, we're seeing military technology generations evolve in the space of weeks and months. So what you deploy today will be obsolete in 2 or 3 months' time. And that is a radical increase in the speed of innovation versus what we've seen over the last 30 or 40 years. And that's where we need to really, really quickly catch up.
There are some concerns about the use of technology, especially AI technology. I mean, John Trickett, an MP, has raised the concern in Parliament about the data that's gathered and how that is used. I mean, can you give a guarantee that that data is secure and is protected under the deal that you've done with the UK government? He's very worried about that.
Absolutely. The way, and this is, I think, a common misunderstanding about Palantir and the way our software operates. When we provide it to a customer like the UK Ministry of Defence, it becomes their sovereign capability. That's to say they have full legal but also physical control over their instance of the software. And that means they can use it when they want on the basis that they determine. And it's not something that we as a company or frankly anybody else can interfere with in any way.
Does that mean, forgive me for interrupting, does that mean you have an ethical question when it comes to developing this kind of technology? And I ask you that because I know that your company has developed technology for ICE agents in America. Now, there is controversy over the way that ICE is conducting its raids, and also controversy about racial profiling. The technology that you provided to ICE, it does allow those agents to profile an area, to look at the people who would be there, to give an idea of the likelihood that those people might be people they want to deport. If you're saying once you hand the tech over, you have no control, does that pose an ethical question about what you're developing and selling?
The ethics are vital. It's something that we spend a lot of time thinking about and is actually hardwired into the business and has been from the start. I would give you one example of that. We have never provided our software to any country that we would consider to be adversarial to the West.
But what about America, though? I mean, under Donald Trump, some people might look at the way Trump is behaving and might question that.
Well, in America, they elected Donald Trump. He was given a significant public mandate in the election last year, and it was very clear during that campaign that his policy would involve deportations. And therefore, we don't see it as our role as a company to second guess what the general public in America have decided at the ballot box. And I would also add that work that we do for ICE has been, we've been doing since 2011. It was a contract that was first given to us under President Obama, and it's continued ever since under President Trump in his first term, under President Biden, and now again under President Trump in his second term. And
ask you finally, your global chief executive, has said that AI will eliminate the need for mass migration by replacing jobs. How would that work, and is that a good thing?
So I think what we're seeing is perhaps the most extraordinary productivity uplift since the Industrial Revolution. I think that's the promise of the AI revolution. So that means that really every job is going to be significantly, I would argue, improved, because what will actually get replaced by AI is largely the administrative burden. And so it will dislocate certain jobs. It will change the relative value of certain jobs within organizations. But on a net basis, it will create more interesting work and more work for people.
Louis Mosley, Executive Vice President, UK and Europe at Palantir. Thank you for joining us on the programme.
Thank you.
That's the optimistic view of AI, and he works in tech, so he's entitled to have that opinion. The idea that all the boring stuff will be done by the computers, and all the fun and enlivening and beneficial things will be done by people at greater length with more pleasure and more money. Whether the economics of that actually turn out to stack up, it seems to me to be the most important question, one of the most important questions of the next 20 years.